I'm Megan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. Beyond the Shadow of Doubt is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com/podcast. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." First Friday's free coaching, a confidential group to bring all the questions, vent frustrations, share fears, express doubts. Navigating a new and uncertain reality is hard enough. Let's remove the worry of judgment from others. In this group, I will help you help yourself so that you can be there for your child, family, loved ones, and for you too. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. You must complete the agreement. Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. I am so excited for you to get to know my guest a little bit better. I have Gracee Purcell, otherwise known as the founder, originator of the RaYnbow Collective, and also I'm going to get this wrong, To All the Latter-day Gays Instagram account.
You got it. But just real quick, quick correction. I'm just the current president. My friend Maddie Tenney actually started RaYnbow Collective a year before I came in.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, okay. No worries.
I don't think I realized that. You've been a pivotal part of the organization for sure. And thank you for carrying on the torch, I guess we could say, then that Maddie started burning. I got to actually meet you in person. My first interaction with I think the account was the RaYnbow Collective account, probably a good 3-4 years ago. I wanted to support it and purchase some of the stickers. And then I found your account and I loved how I think it was at the Gather conference. It could have been something before that. You made a point to introduce yourself to me and told me who you were. And I instantly knew who the Instagram account was, and it was lovely to put a name and a face together. I'm really excited to get to know you and for my listeners to get to know you and your story, your heart, what drives you, and what's important to you. So with that, please take a moment and introduce yourself. Tell us your origin story, all the things that you feel comfortable including.
Yeah, so like I said, my name is Gracee. My pronouns are she, her. I don't know. I was born in Utah, in Ogden. I lived there for 2 years, and then I moved to like the Boise area in Idaho once I was 2. Grew up here. I'm from a small town called Star. Not a lot of people know about it. It's like 10,000 people. So what's really interesting about the place that I grew up, which is Star, is even though it's only like 10,000 people, we have 2 church buildings in our city, even though we only have only probably 3-4 years ago, we got our second stoplight in our city.
Wow.
So it's very heavily, everyone knows everyone. And I would say a good amount of the city are members of the church. So as well as that, my family is still very active. All my extended family, my mom is number 7 out of 11 kids. My dad is number 2 out of 6, and no one has left the church in their family. So I come from a very strong faith background, and my family continues to attend, and I still attend church myself, and probably in different ways than my family does, in different ways than I used to. But that's kind of the background I came from. I'm from, a small conservative town in Idaho that's heavily populated with members of the church, and then my own family attends as well.
So you are currently a student at Brigham Young University, true?
Yeah. I'm a senior at BYU studying psychology, but I transferred from Boise State, so I have about a year and a half left at BYU because of that.
Okay. And you are as I mentioned in the beginning, you're the current president of the RaYnbow Collective organization. It's a nonprofit, correct?
Yeah, yep. Current president, and
Tell us a
I
little bit
took
about
over
that.
last year. Yeah, so RaYnbow Collective is a nonprofit based out of Provo that aims to provide support and resources to queer BYU students. The best way to describe us is like a signpost. So a lot of other organizations will do like weekly meetings with any students and kind of have like a club feel. We have a council that plans our events, and then we have like one to like 1 to 3 big events a year. But most of what we do is helping point people to where they should go. So, you need subsidized therapy. Well, we can send you to Celebrate or Flourish, right? Or you need a like emergency transfer scholarship. Well, we can send you to the Out Foundation. And so
Mhm.
that's a lot of what we do, is just help collect these resources and create networks and support BYU students like where we can.
Awesome. That is a wonderful resource to make available to students in Provo. So thank you for doing that. As you may know, one of my primary goals in starting this podcast, Gracee, is to normalize faith journeys, that they all look different and that questions, doubts come up as part of that journey for all of us, really, no matter what our faith of origin is. That's just part of territory. And it doesn't have to be a big deal or a shameful thing. But unfortunately, historically, there has been a lot of shame attached to asking questions or having doubts, particularly when they go contrary to what we would call the status quo of our fellow parishioners, our fellow, you know, brothers and sisters, siblings in the body of Christ, in our congregations. But I've come to learn it doesn't mean any of those things. It doesn't mean we are less faithful or not a true believer. I caught that you come from a long line, a long history on both sides of your parents' families. 11 kids on your mom's and 6 on
Yeah.
your dad's. And you said none have kind of deviated from the prescribed, expected, what some would even call the path. And then you also said you still attend church, but I attend differently than my family. Would you mind sharing a little more about what you mean by that?
Yeah. So I think being, like a gay member of the church, you have to think about things differently because the blueprint that the church has set out for you maybe doesn't fit. And it's a generalized blueprint for the general population of the church. And so when you're not part of the majority, a lot of it is finding your own path and trying to figure out how to practice spirituality in a way that's meaningful to you. And so that's a lot of what I've been doing the last 6 months or so,
Hmm.
is figuring out how I practice my spirituality and like what parts of it are meaningful and what parts aren't, and what I would like to practice. And so for me, that looks like sometimes I don't go to my home ward. Sometimes I go to what me and my friends have dubbed bonus church. And we'll just go to a random church in Provo or wherever. And
Okay.
I think that's been huge. I think it's so fun to be able to go and experience other religions, and to be able to experience like faith practices and spirituality with like a lens of curiosity rather than maybe a lens of like trauma.
So you mean you don't go to a different ward, which for those that are listening that aren't of the LDS faith background, that's a separate congregation in the same kind of geographical general area, but you go to an actual different denomination.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been to an Episcopal church, I've been to a Krishna temple, I've been to a mosque recently. I have set up to go to like a Buddhist like I don't know, like session type thing. And it's just been really fun to
Mm.
explore and learn about different faiths.
I agree. I That resonates with me. I took a world religions class at BYU actually, and I've been to the Hare Krishna temple there south of campus. Well, I think it's in Salem, so quite a ways south of campus, but I got so much from exploring and learning about other faiths. So I feel that I'm with you on that. So this is a brave path that you are forging, and I use the word forging on purpose. I mean, you've shared from the beginning, your path looks different than those that have come before you. And if I may be so bold and with the most caring heart, ask, why do you choose this? Why are you choosing to forge ahead in this way?
I think,
And there's
well,
no
if you
wrong
aren't,
answer.
you could, I'm trying to think of maybe, I don't know if there is like a clear answer to that.
That's fair. Hmm.
But I've always said that I will stay in the church as long as I feel it's the best place for me to worship, as long as it allows me the space to worship as I want and as I feel is necessary and good for me. And so while that's changed throughout my life and it's become harder in some ways and maybe easier in others, even after going to all these different denominations, I still find myself feeling most at home with the Mormon church. And I think that I've just found that I take some things and I leave some things, and that's okay.
I appreciate that answer very much. And I realized as soon as I asked that and then you started to respond, I also realized as a BYU student, you have signed the honor code, and there are certain expectations that go along with attending that university, one of which is attending church. So I appreciate your candid, truthful response. And I think it's a great response. I don't think anything you've shared is in contrary to that commitment that you've made. I served a mission in Houston, Texas, and our mission president always encouraged us to attend other faiths. He openly encouraged us to do so. And so I attended a midnight mass at the Catholic Church in downtown Houston on Christmas Eve one year. I attended a Jehovah's Witnesses service on a Sunday. And I remember we went with two other elders, and I remember one of them saying after we left, "Wow, they kick our butt in friendshiping and in fellowshipping," because I remember we were flocked to. So I think that's great. You're honoring what you feel inside, and you're honoring your heart, your needs, your intuition, what you feel is best for your mental, emotional, spiritual health. And I think that's what's really most important. So on this journey, how do you navigate as you have come to know yourself more and understand more about, we're multifaceted as humans. We have our physical, our spiritual, our mental, emotional, intellectual, all of these things. When, excuse me, when you find something that maybe at one point was okay, or it worked for you, and then you come to a point where there's this dissonance, it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't settle like it once did. Granted, you have more understanding, more insight into your human experience, right? And it just doesn't make sense or resonate with you any longer. What is your approach? Can you share a little bit with us about how you do that?
Yeah, so I think the most like concrete thing that I usually go towards is talking to people about it. A lot of times the best way for me to sort through like my thoughts and what I'm feeling is by voicing them and then hearing other people and like what they have to say and what their experiences are. So that's a lot of it. But I think that what has really helped me with kind of sorting through and being okay with maybe finding things that don't resonate with me as much is I found that it's more important to me that I understand the character of God than follow the rules. And I rarely have questions about the character of God as it's spoken of in the scriptures or as I've come to know it. So mostly when I don't find something that maybe feels right anymore, I pray for the strength to stay and maybe the boldness to speak up.
I love that. More important to understand the character of God. You know what you said, you pray for the strength to keep going and to speak up.
Mm.
Let's pivot and talk about that for just a minute. It's one thing for us to acknowledge these things within ourselves, but verbalizing them openly, sometimes in mixed company, that's a completely different animal, so to speak. How do you, or do you share these things when, what is that like to share this openly, whether it's with your faith community, maybe your family, your family community?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. It's especially at BYU. It's really hard to find people who are is like willing to acknowledge the flaws, but also at the same time acknowledge maybe the good parts of it as well, of the church and of the gospel. And so I don't I think it's rare for me to find people that are my age to maybe discuss faith with, or how our faith has changed in maybe like a not so bitter way, but more in like a critical thinking conversation way.
Mhm.
And it's kind of similar with my family. So where queer BYU is often maybe too negative for me, a lot of times my family is a little bit too positive. And I think it's hard to find the middle ground. So I've been really grateful to find the queer and Mormon intersection for that reason, because I feel like so many are able to acknowledge, the pain and the hurt, and also hold the good as well.
So tell me what you mean. You said the queer BYU thing is hard for you to acknowledge. The queer Mormon intersection is where you have found more comfort. Tell me a little bit more what you mean. I just want to make sure I'm following you.
Yeah, no, you're good. That did sound confusing when you voiced it back. Queer BYU students. So I feel like BYU exemplifies maybe like most problematic parts of church culture. It's crazy. It just like magnifies it by 10. Anything that you have issues with church culture, it's probably a lot more prevalent at BYU. And because of that, there are less queer BYU students who are religion positive or church positive, because the hurt goes so deep and then you have to sit in it. There's no time or room to heal, because BYU is like your life. You're going to school there, you live there, you're surrounded by people in Provo. And so because there is no healing, you kind of sit in that for a long time, and it becomes bitterness and negativity, which is fine, and there's space. And I'm not going to say that I haven't felt that. I just find it more productive for me to find maybe people who also can find the church and the gospel beautiful. And I think that outside of BYU and just in like the queer Mormon intersection, so you've got people like Ben Shalati, Charlie Bird, Megan Decker,
Yeah.
kind of all of those type of people. I think they've done a good job of balancing the negativity with the positivity, and trying to show the real experience.
No, I get you. I understand what you're saying. It makes sense that if you're in a space where more nuanced conversations aren't really encouraged or even joined in, if you try to bring something up, or worse, if you do express something and then it's not validated. Yeah, there's no healing. There's no acknowledgement of active pain. I can understand why then sometimes that would just lead to a less positive outcome, a less positive space, less movement in a progressive or just open-minded
Right.
space. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I'm sorry that that is the reality for queer BYU students. My hope in chatting with you and with all the people that I do on my podcast is that we're opening conversations that historically have been really hard and awkward and uncomfortable conversations that were often avoided. It's time to do better. And so folks like you are brave to openly share your thoughts and your heart and your stories. So talking about this idea of, it's harder to talk or address these issues at BYU versus LDS/Mormon spaces outside of BYU. Let's talk a little bit about what makes a difference, what makes a space more safe, more able to be productive in conversation, where both parties, we could say, ideally feel heard, not necessarily. I think sometimes when we have discussions, the assumption is we need to come to agreement. We have to look or see exactly the same, and that's not necessarily true. A meaningful, productive conversation can be seeing one another's point of view, honoring it, allowing it, validating it. Agreement doesn't even have to come into the picture, right? You know that. So,
Yeah.
can you share your thoughts on creating these types of spaces?
Yeah, I think as part of the movement to like end homophobia at BYU, and more worldwide as well, we've sometimes over made promises. We've told people, and particularly queer people, that we can create safe spaces, when in fact, like you were talking about, all we can do is create spaces to be brave together. And to call people into a brave space is to call everyone into do something together, right? And to promise people a safe space is to make everyone a promise about everyone else that's impossible to keep. And I
That
feel
is
like the
true.
idea of safe spaces, as worthy as it is and as amazing as it would be, it kind of grew out of hand into this idea that the work of activists and community builders and others in the spaces that I reside in, that this work by definition should be about safe spaces, but it's not, and it probably never will be.
Wow. I just learned something really deep and profound there. You're so right. Safe spaces are the ideal. It is, sure, we can work towards it, but you're right. What is needed is for those who can and are willing to lean into discomfort and be brave and be courageous and enter these spaces, even if they're unsure if they are safe, quote unquote, safe spaces. Can you think of a time where I'm sure you have lots of examples where you did that, but I would love if you can share some examples of when you have done that, that I know would help fellow listeners, apply it in their lives, get brave from your example, or get some brave vibes, courageous vibes from your example.
Yeah, maybe one that I don't share as much is I do a lot of panels in BYU classes. And essentially what that looks like is a teacher has reached out and said, "Hey, I'd love my students to hear about your experience." And sometimes I do them with people who focus on like race and ethnicity. Some people I do it with like mental health and disability. Sometimes it's just queer students. And it just kind of depends on the class and what the teacher's looking for. But this last semester, I did like 14 or 15 of these panels. And I got one, I guess a little bit of backstory. I got pretty frustrated this last semester, because I felt like I was doing all this work, and particularly with BYU admin, I meet a lot with them to tell them about the state of queer BYU, because I'm not sure they're totally understanding where we're at a lot of times. And I was talking to Tom Christopherson,
Mm-hmm.
and I just told him it is so tiring to always have to beg to for people to see you as human, and to beg for people to see your humanity. And it's just like wearing on me. And I'm so tired of dealing with BYU admin, and I'm so tired of, dealing with BYU students. And I kind of just like was so frustrated. So I told him about this, and he said, you know, you should stop. You should stop going to BYU admin, because the real work is done one by one, person by person, individual by individual. And you're not going to see the change now. And BYU will probably not really get any better while you're there. But in 20 to 40 years, when those students or classmates or ward members, the ones that you interacted with, are in places of power or in positions of power, that's when you're going to see the change. It's the influence you had on them. And so I love these panels because I have the opportunity to go talk to these smaller classes
Mm-hmm.
of just people. And I get to say to them, I am a person just like you. I also like sports. I also like getting ice cream with my friends. I also,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not just a face. I'm not just a random name out there. And I think that some of my best conversations with people have been in these panels where they ask me a question that maybe doesn't come out quite the way maybe they're intending it, or maybe it does, and they're really asking a question that is uncomfortable for me to answer. And I'm able to take a step back and I guess give them a piece of my heart and my testimony and the knowledge that I have gained through the work that I do, and just other experiences, and we're able to kind of sit with that together. But I kind of think it requires them to be brave, in that they're brave enough to ask the questions and vulnerable enough to admit that they don't know something, and then brave enough to listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's also bravery on my part as to how vulnerable I am able and have to be in order to give them answers that will impact them and that they will take home with them and change hopefully the way that they see things. And so these brave spaces, I think it's really important to note that it's not just on the queer person's behalf, and it's not just on maybe the ally or whoever it may be on the other party's behalf. It has to be both of you in order for it to be brave.
It does. It absolutely does. That is so well said. It's the epitome of a partnership. It is a joint undertaking, and you need both. I hear what you're saying about I get tired of feeling like I'm begging to just be seen as a human. I've said this before in previous episodes, and I'll say it again. The more I have learned about this space as a parent ally, I'm a parent of an LGBTQ plus kiddo, I saw more clearly how much queer folks are really reduced to sexuality. And it is so unkind. It's so demoralizing and dehumanizing. You know, I think if hetero folks, if they experienced that, if they were reduced to who they were attracted to or who they loved, maybe they might get a taste of what that feels like. So my heart goes out to you. I have woken up to that reality for queer folks, and I am actively working towards changing the narrative, toward expanding it. That's a better word, not change, expanding the narrative, because we all have, just like we all have physical health and mental health, we all have sexual health. We all have that. We all have these facets to our human, to our person, to our being. If you could wave your magic wand, you mentioned how much you would love at BYU to just feel seen as a human, someone who has likes, dislikes, preferences, interests, talents, gifts, and all of that. If you could wave a magic wand, what else do you wish could be different? I'll say specifically at BYU.
That's so hard because in a perfect world, maybe we would have never had to have policies or a history like this, but that's just not realistic and that's not what happened. And I think that just changing policy wouldn't even fix the issues that are at BYU. It is so deep rooted. It is so much more than policy. While the policy upholds many of the opinions and beliefs and behaviors of the campus, even if we change those policies, campus would continue to be unsafe probably for a long time.
That's totally fair. Maybe I should clarify. I'm not talking necessarily major change. There are things certainly that can be done by fellow students, faculty, staff, administrators alike, that policy doesn't even need to be changed for.
Yeah.
So maybe clarifying. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't asking,
You're good.
right, we're going to change policy. This is it. We're pulling out the big guns. No, not that at all. Just even little things.
Gosh, I wish maybe this is crazy, but I really wish that the rainbow wasn't a political statement or like appeared to be against the church, or I don't know how to explain it, but even just like, you got these queer student organizations and we're not allowed on campus. And so because of that, I will go and try to do things just as a student and introduce myself as a student. And there are so many small things that you don't even think about that you can or can't do. For example, you can't use the plus at the end of LGBTQ plus because the brethren at the top of the church haven't used the plus yet. Therefore, at BYU, we can't use the plus yet, right? Or
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
we can't use, we're not supposed to use like DEI, like diversity, equity, inclusion. If I were to ever pitch anything to BYU with those words, they would immediately shut it down. What they want is belonging. And that is the only word they will use. Is they will tell you to change it, and it has to be belonging. So there are just like so many small things that I wish I could walk into a meeting and say, hey, I'm from RaYnbow Collective, and this is why, like, and kind of give myself that credibility as like the spokesperson, because otherwise I just have to go in and say I'm a student, which is fine, but the average student probably doesn't know the things that I know about queer BYU, right? So I just wish they would like let us exist on campus, like change the thing about the rainbow. I don't know, change the LGBTQ plus thing, the belonging thing. I just think there's so much that BYU doesn't understand about the queer community there.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, I didn't know any of that. I mean, I'm a graduate of BYU twice. However, this is all none of this existed, obviously, while I was there as a student many years ago. And to hear you describing this, it just, if someone were to ask me what's behind that, these types of approaches, you know, fear and misunderstanding, or that's what stands out to me. It doesn't feel driven by love. or a desire to connect, to see and be seen. And I can say that I'm not a student. I'm done with school. I'm not going to be going back. You don't need to make any comment on that. That's totally fine. I think just like anybody, not y'all, sorry, queer folks just want to be seen for who they are, that they're not making these things up, that this is their true, real lived experience. And y'all are walking a fine line, especially when you come from families of conservative faith backgrounds. And I have found that's true regardless if it's the LDS faith or other conservative faiths. They all just want to be seen and believed. Thank you for sharing your thoughts so openly, things that when you don't necessarily identify with what is considered to be a marginalized community, these are things that you just don't think about. And that is the definition of privilege. So my goal is to raise consciousness, raise awareness, and invite folks to think about things from a different point of view. One of the last questions I always like to ask my guests is, what does it mean to you to live beyond the shadow of doubt?
I think for me, it's not eliminating the doubt, it's acknowledging it, but also being able to learn from it. And I think it's just moving forward, but it doesn't have a prescribed path necessarily which way forward is. I think maybe that's a misconception. There isn't really a forward in a certain direction. As long as you're going somewhere forward, I think that's valid. And so to me, living beyond the shadow of doubt is just acknowledging my doubt and then continuing and learning from it and doing better, because when you know better, right, when you're learning from these doubts, you do better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to share that maybe you haven't had the opportunity just yet, that's on your mind or your heart, that you would like to leave with listeners today?
I think maybe at the risk of sounding dramatic, which I feel weird about ever saying things like this, but I think it's important. BYU in particular right now is at a scary spot. And I'm not sure that I think people understand maybe some of the emotional toll it takes, but as president of RaYnbow Collective, I have the opportunity and privilege to hold a lot of stories of queer BYU students and to know them deeper than maybe others. And I don't know if the work is being done and we're trying our best. And sometimes I wonder if it needs to be done faster, and we need to be more urgent about it, because the things that are happening at BYU are beyond emotional safety. You know, they've moved to like physical safety. And that's not something that you hear about a lot, unless it makes the news, right? Like in my time at BYU, you know, I've been sent threats by a terrorist group. I have had, 200, 300 protesters show up with guns at my events. Last semester I was hate crimed on the street, and all these things happen and you're not hearing about them. And I wonder if people did hear about these stories, if there would be more urgency instead of just telling BYU students or queer BYU students to leave BYU. I wonder if there would be more urgency to take a stand with the community, and help in that way.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that to our collective attention. I 110% believe you that there are things that go on that do not make the news for one reason or another. And that there is not just an emotional, but a physical component to safety versus not safety, I guess. Thank you for sharing that and bringing that to the forefront. Things like that are often uncomfortable and unpleasant to acknowledge and to talk about, but they're important too, and we need to. If folks had more questions for you wanted to connect with you, what would be the easiest way for them to do that, Gracee?
I think probably the easiest, most accessible way is through Instagram. So I have my account to all of the Latter-day Gays, and there's an underscore after each word. Or you're welcome to reach out to RaYnbow.collective, and rainbow is spelled with a Y instead of an I.
Yeah, I will leave both of those in the show notes. And I also wanted to mention that starting this month of this year, once a month on a Friday, we chose the fourth Friday. We're going to be holding, it's confidential, you have to register in advance, but a partnership with me and with the RaYnbow Collective, a coaching group. And we'll talk about certain topics each time and have opportunities to vent, to share, to emote, to be coached, or to learn from others being coached. So I'll leave information about that. I am having folks contact you directly to also be vetted out that way, because we do want, this is going to be a safe space. This will be purposely safe and confidential. Thank you so much for being here and sharing, Gracee. I have a few questions I like to ask my guests that just require 1 or 2 word answers. This just gives us an opportunity to get to know you a little bit more. Tell us what your favorite book is.
That's so hard.
Or the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
Yay. We are Potterheads in our family. We love them all. I think we rewatch the whole series every Christmas. Okay. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert.
And what about, who is your favorite artist?
Like musician?
You pick.
Renee Rapp.
Ooh, that's a new one for me. Okay. Are you a night owl or a morning lark?
Morning lark.
Lucky. And do you have a celebrity crush?
Well, my gay awakening was Katie Locks.
Okay. I love that. Your gay awakening. That's awesome. And do you do still or carbonated water, or are you a diet soda fan?
I love soda. I love Dr. Pepper, but I've had to cut back because I live 50 feet away from a swig. And so now I do a lot of sparkling water.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be hard. There's a swig coming to my neck of the woods. It's unbelievable. I mean, here in Dallas,
Incredible.
I'm shocked. It is. It is. I saw the sign. It's not open yet, but it's on the docket. Okay, finally, the furthest place that you have traveled.
I don't know geography, either Puerto Rico or I lived in Mexico for a semester, so I traveled all around Mexico.
That is so fun. Good for you. Do you speak Spanish?
No, I should have. I can understand a little bit of it, but I was 18 when I lived there and I didn't care.
Plus, there's always Google Translate.
That's literally what we used.
We use that in our travels sometimes. Gracee, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for the service that you are doing for the queer community at BYU and by extension, those in the surrounding areas. We're doing good things. You're doing hard things. So thank you. If you would like more information on how to participate in Fourth Friday's free coaching, a partnership with the RaYnbow Collective and Megan Skidmore Coaching, please reach out directly to Gracee on Instagram. The link to her Instagram account will be in the show notes. Hopeful Spaces is a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. It's a free monthly parent, ally, or caregiver support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. Email chc@dallashopecharities.org for more info. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.